Although it has certainly lost a huge amount of credibility in recent years, there is no escaping the sheer buzz the Ballon d'Or creates even today, with the awarding of the Golden Ball starting off debates amongst fans and former pros for months on end almost every year. And today, I'm going to revisit the specific 20 years of debate and discussion where I was personally involved. So in saying that, let's take a look back at every single Ballon d'Or winner since 2004 and rank their particular season from worst to best. Now, after hearing that sentence, the two of you, the intelligent among you would have worked out the following things by now. A, since I am going to judge every individual season, yes, season and not calendar year, that inevitably means that these two will show up multiple times. A lot of times. Too many times. F***ing almost 70% of the time. And B, as per usual, I will not prioritize statistics. No one should. Instead, this list will be based on 4 categories, and here they are from least important to most. Number 4, performances relative to the entire team. So for example, instead of comparing a player's goals and assists to a player with a different role from a completely different team and system, you instead judge it on relation to how his team was doing. And this will hold about 15% of the weight. Number 3, performances in the big games, and whether said performances led to collective success. In other words, where were they when it mattered most? And this itself matters about 20%. Number 2, the Roy Keane category, aka how well did the player do his job? So no, I'm not gonna mark a defender or centre forward down because he completed less dribbles and less passes than a second forward or number 10. That's objectively stupid. Centre forwards will be judged on factors such as, but not solely on, the percentage of goals relative to the entire team. Defenders on factors such as amount of clean sheets and influence on key results. Number 10s on dribbles and assists. 6s on playmaking and so on. And this will hold about 25% of the weight. And number 1, i.e. last and certainly the anti-least, of course, consistency. And this will hold 40% of the weight. And yes, all that added up does in fact make 100. Funny how things work out, eh? Let's roll on. Howdy. Number 20, Lionel Messi 2023. So this bloke, I'm sure you've heard of him, alone makes up about 40% of this list. What the actual fuck? And while that to an extent is an indication of just how insane he's been in the last 20 years, 2023 just wasn't one of those years. And I'm sorry, but for me, this was easily the worst Ballon d'Or decision during my time as a fan. And by the way, I'm not even considering the fact that Erling Haaland was literally the difference in Manchester City winning the Champions League, which also not to mention was actually the culmination of a treble, while also breaking record after record after... I'm not going to talk about any of that. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to talk about anything. Thank you for watching. Why? Because I've already discussed it all to death. Watch this video for analysis of Messi's time at PSG. Watch this one for analysis of his World Cup. These two for my thoughts on him sweeping up those accolades. And all of these because it just would be nice, wouldn't it? Number 19, Andriy Shevchenko 2004. And now we get rolling. Like bro, no joke, every single campaign from here onwards is either world class or somehow even higher. Starting with a guy who some Chelsea fans may actually roll their eyes at. But you see, prior to his ill-advised move to Stamford Bridge, Andriy Shevchenko was actually one of the best strikers in the world for quite a number of years. And 2004 may have just been his best year. Having scored a winning penalty in the Champions League final shootout the previous season, Shevchenko maximized his contributions in 03-04, helping Milan to the Scudetto by scoring a crucial goal in a 1-0 win over Roma. That, as well as 23 others in the league, led him to edge out homegrown forwards like Francesco Totti and Alberto Gilardino to the Serie A Golden Boot. But listen, as amazing as he was in front of goal, man, all this pales in comparison to how he is as a human being. Like, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of exactly how much this man has done for the less fortunate, but man, Sheva has a heart of gold. After all, he is pretty much single-handedly responsible for the likes of Jimmy Traore and Jamie Carragher having Champions League medals. Such a pure soul. Anyways, that was the following season. But as for 03-04, apart from them getting slapped up by Deportivo in the quarters, sorry, but that'll never not be funny. And the fact that for me, Thierry Henry just had an even more insane season, there really isn't much else anyone can say to downplay Shevchenko's year. He just ranks this low simply because of the caliber of campaigns ahead of him. Case in point. Number 18, Luka Modric, 2018. By some distance, the man with the worst attacking stats on this list. And by the way, that includes one defender. Like seriously, Cannavaro actually scored twice as many goals for Juventus in 05-06 than Modric had for Real Madrid in 17-18. But this is what I mean about stats. Cause while I do believe that giving him the Ballon d'Or over Ronaldo that year was certainly a stretch, there's no denying that in 2018, Luka Modric was still world class. And not only is it baffling, but it also annoys me like a motherfucker when people judge players like him, Xavi, Iniesta, Scholes, and to an extent even Zinedine Zidane on just goals and assists. Fact of the matter is that Luka Modric in 2018 pulled the strings for Champions League winners and was the guy for an extremely unfancied national team who went on to reach the World Cup final. And without a doubt, had Croatia gone on to somehow win that final, Luka's tournament would have been thought of as up there alongside the greatest in history. And to completely run games, game to game, with the relative lack of quality around him, on the back of completion of the 3-peat, you really can't overlook this stuff, man. Number 17, Lionel Messi, 2021. So for the longest of time, I actually found it quite hard to credit Leo for this season because, well, there was clearly a more deserved winner. But you know what? For this video, I'm actually going to try and push that at the back of my mind and solely focus on his contributions. And in doing so, I found that, unlike 2023, this was actually very good. So in his final season at Barcelona, Messi bagged himself another Copa del Rey while also comfortably winning the Pichichi despite the ingoings at Barcelona not really being right. But let's cut through the crap. Come on, who are we kidding? Those aren't the main reasons Leo makes it even this high up, because that would be this. And you know you weird fanboys who like to pretend that Messi dominated the 2022 World Cup? Let me put it to you kids like this. Bar that final against Brazil, Messi's performances at the 2021 Copa America are miles clear of his performances at the 2022 World Cup. Him receiving the Golden Ball at the World Cup was the romantic decision. Him receiving the Golden Ball at the Copa was the correct decision. Number 16, Lionel Messi, 2010. Okay, I want to address something to my very little audience today. You see, from my previous rankings video, giving the 2010 Ballon d'Or to Wesley Sneijder over Messi, I'm pretty sure raised the most eyebrows as far as you Messi fans go. So let me explain. Now, as you should have heard on the intro, I based the best player in each season across 4 categories, none of which are statistics. And as you'll see further down the line, the only time I'd prioritize statistics is if said statistics are so far ahead of everyone else that it's not even fair. And I'm sorry, but Messi 2010 just wasn't that. Because yes, while he did probably have the best stats among the forward players that year, when you combine it with a few other factors, he falls behind quite a few of them. For example, Didier Drogba put up crazy numbers that season in a significantly harder league and combined it with a league and cup double before then going on to score against Brazil in the World Cup with an average at best side. Similarly, Diego Forlan played up front for a team who aren't very creative at all and still put up respective numbers and then went on to win a very well earned Golden Ball in South Africa. And that, my friends, is why for me, unless you're putting your hands over your ears, ignoring all the noise around you, and are purely basing it on the eye test and or stats, these guys were better than Messi that season. Whereas for me, when all the here comes the magic word context is considered, according to my own criteria, it was Sneijder who deserved it. And while I can waste even more time explaining why, I'd rather talk about Messi's year cause, well, it's his entry. So yeah, Messi had a brilliant 09-10 where he won La Liga, had a pretty good UCL run until a certain someone put a stop to that, scored one of his greatest goals ever against Zaragoza, became even more of an individual as the team cohesion was a tad disrupted because of, well, you know, and slowly began giving people glimpses that maybe, just maybe, he's more than a mere generational talent. But then was brought back down to earth at the World Cup. So yeah, Far from his best, but world class nonetheless. Number 15, Ricardo Kaka, 2007. As much as I love Kaka, who doesn't, of all the entries on this list, I do think this one's the one that benefits the most from the element of nostalgia. Well, kind of. Because even having said that, in the categories I'll outlined, he thrives in 3 of them. Like, he was clearly the best player in what was very much an aging team, something which people tend to forget, and single-handedly tore up defenses, particularly in the big games. So why does he still rank relatively low? Because he was lacking in the most meaty category of them all: consistency. Because as amazing as Kaka was in the Champions League, his performances in Serie A that season just weren't up to scratch. And while that certainly wasn't all his fault, this was an aging side, as I said. In a list containing incredible campaigns from incredible players, this was unfortunately the ultimate tiebreaker. Number 14, Ronaldinho, 2005. Now, I suspect this one may too be a little low for some of you, but Ronaldinho actually had an even better season the following campaign where he didn't win the Ballon d'Or. He had better stats, won the league comfortably this time, added the Champions League to his cabinet, and just ripped team to shreds all across Spain as well as the rest of Europe. Though given his reputation for clubbing and the nightlife, I do wonder if he'd have done all that had he known that you didn't really have to take part in the Champions League to win it that year. You see, much like Shevchenko a couple of years prior, Dinho just had the misfortune of having his best season the same season as another world-class player had an even better season. More on that season later on in this video. Did it? But as it happened, it was 04-05 where he was given the nod, and no doubt deservedly so. And yes, we can talk about him taking a team battling to be in the top 4 to becoming the best side in Europe. We can talk about him at times winning games virtually on his own, and we can even talk about that incredible goal that silenced an entire stadium against one of the best defenses you'll ever see. A game which I myself have actually watched over 100 times as I had recorded it in my VCR, and you know, smartphones weren't really a thing back then. I am older than I look, trust me. But as I've said before on many occasions, when it comes to this man, none of that really matters. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Baller. Number 13, Lionel Messi, 2009. His very first true world-class season was also Pep's very first season as the manager of the Barcelona first team, which was also the best side either the player or manager had ever been involved with before or since. Jesus, talk about perfect storm. And in case you're wondering just how perfect it was, well, they won everything. And I literally mean everything. La Liga, Copa del Rey, Champions League, Super Cup, Club World Cup, Ashes, Super Bowl, WrestleMania. This team was Oops, sorry, wrong picture. This team was unstoppable. And even there, amongst the sea of slightly small and slight but silky superstars that surged from La Masia, Messi stood above all. And in the Champions League final, jumped above all. One of his most underrated goals to cap up one of his most underrated campaigns. Number 12, Cristiano Ronaldo, 2013. You see, due to the nature of these individual awards, what many people tend to forget that, at the end of the day, this is still a team sport, and therefore, in my humble opinion, the best player has to be the one who has the most impact on their team being successful. Most of the time, because of course there are exceptions to every rule, and for this rule in particular, CR7 2013 as well as another famous example I'll address later on, as I said, are the only 2 campaigns that I'd put this high up despite the lack of collective success. But while the positioning of the other entry will almost purely be based on stats, ooh, spoilers, who could it be? Ronaldo 12-13 is actually this high up due to the man's performances relative to his team's performances, because with Jose being typical third season Jose and allegedly falling out with a number of his players, including Cristiano himself of course, because, well, as the old saying goes, 2 Bellens can't really see Bellon to Bellon most of the bell ending time. Or something about clash of personalities, but potato potato. But despite all that, Ronaldo still performed week in, week out, and primarily due to those shifts, this dysfunctional team somehow made it to a Copa final and a UCL semi-final. And let's not forget, other than the red card in that stupid Copa final, in pretty much every other game that season, like the Clásicos, games against City, games against United, games against Dortmund, Ronnie was on form. And as for his stats, we'll talk about consistency. Man scored exactly 34 league goals in exactly 34 league games, exactly 7 Copa goals in exactly 7 Copa games, exactly 2 Super Copa goals in exactly 2 Super Copa games, and exactly 12 Champions League goals in exactly 12 Champions League games, thus ending the season with exactly 55 goals in exactly 55 games. Boy, I gotta tell you, from a numbers-based OC nutcase like myself, chef's kiss, fam. Number 11, Fabio Cannavaro, 2006. The last defender to win the Ballon d'Or just misses out on the top 10 purely due to the history-altering madness Messi and Ronaldo went on to do subsequent to him winning the Ballon d'Or. But that notwithstanding, we've already spoken enough about Messi and Ronaldo, and surprise surprise, are far from done talking about them. Let's cherish the entries where we don't have to. And well, what a campaign that was. I mean, to one-up Ronaldinho in his greatest campaign ever should tell you all you need to know really, but in case it doesn't, this is what went down. So in the 05-06 season, Fabio Cannavaro captained Juventus to a comfortable Serie A win where, despite playing in the most defensively solid league in the world where they were up against the likes of the legendary AC Milan back four, the defense he marshaled all season long still had the best record. And then he went on to lift the World Cup with Italy, where he captained the best defense in that particular tournament too. Like bro, these man conceded only 1 goal from open play in 7 games, and that to an own goal. This is madness, fam. Number 10, Karim Benzema, 2022. Personally, one of my favorite entries on this list. Objectively, yeah, still f***ing class, wasn't it? After being a part of amazing teams and largely going underappreciated for so long, the wider footballing world finally sat up and took notice of just how good Karim Benzema was. And to be fair, had been for about 6 years up to that point. And yes, he was always above Harry Kane, Micah. Though to be honest, I don't really blame you for not knowing that. After all, prime Benzema was probably before your time.
A couple of these are before my time. It was a little bit before my time. I watched the videos.
Did you watch the videos though?
I watched the videos. I watched some videos of him. It's because of the videos I watched.
In all fairness though, it wasn't just Big Meeks who began giving by the then 34-year-old all the credits he deserves only that season. And why was it only that season he began getting noticed? Because his stats went up. Man, you lot are idiots sometimes. Either way though, I couldn't have been more happier for that guy, man. Because after sacrificing his game for the betterment of the team for so many years, Big Ben's finally got his shining moment under the light, where he took a relatively low-key Real Madrid team to a league and European double, the latter of which saw Real go on one of the most dramatic UCL knockout runs ever, with Benz himself having one of the greatest individual UCL knockout runs ever, possibly only rivaled by his good friend 5 years earlier. More on that later too. But yeah man, that's how amazing his UCL run was in 21-22. Like bro, he actually scored 15 that season. The highest Messi ever managed to score was 14. And throw in the fact that he won the Pichichi while 9 clear goals ahead of his closest competitor, while also coming second in the assist charts. All in, again, not the strongest Real side you've ever seen. You undoubtedly have a very well deserved winner and the crowning moment in the career of, for me, one of the greatest centre forwards of all time. Number 9, Lionel Messi, 2019. Okay, I won't lie. For his own astronomical standards, I do think this campaign's a little bit overrated. Hold on. Now, was he still world class? Yes. Did he deserve the Ballon d'Or? You know what, I'm gonna say marginally yes, but this is my point. And you know what, I'm gonna avoid comparing Messi to any other player because, well, to put it straight, I just can't be for stupid debates in every entry. So let's stick to this version of Messi. If I'm not mistaken, there are some of you who think this version of Messi is better than the one in 2011? Are you for real? I mean, the only plausible argument I can think of is the 18-19 team he was a part of was a lot worse than the 2011 team. But even so, not only did the likes of Coutinho and Luis Suarez have hefty contributions themselves that season, but you gotta remember something. This version of Messi isn't like Benzema or the latter-day CR7, whose roles required them to feed off the service of their teammates, and they therefore can look to their teammates if their numbers weren't up to scratch. Au contraire, my friend, this was Messi and Barcelona, and the general rule of thumb was the more creative players left the club, the meatier his role became. So inevitably, with the possible exception of the centre forward who still needed to be world class for Messi to do his job, and he was of course, just not in the big games, watch this video, Leo's statistics was always going to have a negative correlation with the quality of his teammates, and they did. But that doesn't mean he was better than he was in 2011, far from it actually. And also, let's not forget, he had another fairly underwhelming Copa America tournament. Does this tournament get played every single year, by the way? Who runs this shit? Fucking Arsene Wenger. So, now that I have spent over a minute downplaying one of the best versions of one of the greatest players of all time, I think it's about time we discuss the good. So this was pretty easily the best season Lionel Messi has had post his 30th birthday. And despite what I said about his statistics inevitably rising in correlation with his role in the team, fact is he still needed to deliver. And if you didn't watch him and need an idea of just how good he was in so many words, well, hop back to the 06 entry. This was pretty similar, cause you see, 2018-19 saw one of the best versions of one of the best defenders of our time in Virgil van Dijk. This man captained the Champions League winners, who also totaled 97 points in the Premier League, as well as his national side, who reached the final of the Nations League. And yet, he was beaten, albeit narrowly, by only the fourth best version of Messi. I mean, what else do you need to know? Number 8. Cristiano Ronaldo 2017. So in terms of pure aesthetics, this is undoubtedly the worst season Ronaldo has had in his first 18 years as a professional. But again, being the best and being the most entertaining are two different things. And as far as being the best, i.e. doing the job you were given and in turn helping your team be successful, this was 100% one of his best campaigns. Because despite starting off looking relatively stiff because of the injury he received at the Euros, Ronaldo still managed to score a goal in his debut and bag another goal to cap off a great performance away at Dortmund, one of the toughest away grounds in the world, as I've been told. And starting from there, Ronaldo slowly grew into his new role of not specifically goal scorer. This was, as a matter of fact, statistically his worst goal scoring season in Real since 2010, but more specifically, the game breaker. Because whenever Real needed something special, this man was always there. Be it throwing it back and working the wings in a stellar display against Napoli, the all-round brilliant performance against Dortmund as previously mentioned, rescuing Real in the brink with a brace against Las Palmas, still managing to get on the score sheet in Real's only elimination in the Copa del Rey, smashing a hat-trick in the Club World Cup final, and what for me made him edge past 18-19 Messi, putting up the greatest UCL knockout campaign of all time. It's not all about looks, kids. It's not all about looks. Number 7, CR7 2008. Here you are! The version of Ronaldo which I suspect is most of you kids' favourite. The reason being? Entertainment! Great. So Ronaldo that... Boy, that must be fun at parties. Like, don't get me wrong, he did bits that season, but once again, had those bits not resulted in collective success, and had he not performed so consistently in the bigger games, I may not have put him higher than CR7 in 2018, and maybe even Messi in 2019. But as it happened, he pretty much ticked all those boxes. This was the very first season Ronaldo played that role of the modern day winger, albeit a lot more withdrawn than the one he played at Madrid, a role which he pretty much revolutionized in the Premier League. And be it from the right where he had to take it to the byline, from the left left where he had to cut in and drive, or even as an attacking midfielder in a couple of games, Ronnie was unplayable in 2008, combining pace, strength and skills with the goals, assists and big game displays, notably against the likes of Sporting, Newcastle, Portsmouth, Arsenal, Barca, as well as the UCL final against Chelsea, just to name a few. Just ignore this, please.
Look, you fool. If I don't score the goal, we don't shoot the penalties. The people forget that.
You tell him, Ron.
What do you say, sorry?
Number 6, Robert Lewandowski, 2020. What? I don't care if there was no award given that year, okay? Fuck off. This does not change the fact that this guy had one of the best seasons we've ever seen in modern day football. A season which rivals almost any Messi and Ronaldo have ever had. Like, come on, man. 55 goals in 47 games in all composition, including 15 in 12 in the Champions League. Like, fuck's sake, bro, this guy was the focal point of an attack who scored almost 4 goals per game in the #1 competition in the world. And on top of that, they won the damn treble. And while it's pretty much common knowledge that he was dropped the following year too, there still is no doubting which one of Robert Lewandowski's seasons was better. It was this one. The man simply had everything that season. Goals, assists, movement, link-up play, anything you needed from a modern day centre forward. 2020 Robert Lewandowski had it in abundance. And personal preferences aside, if any of you told me that he's the greatest striker of his generation, I honestly wouldn't argue too much. What a player. Number 5, Lionel Messi, 2011. So even those of you who are probably too young to remember his beginnings, I doubt you'd be shocked to learn that in the beginning of his career, Messi was not only constantly compared to, but was also pretty much in the shadow of Maradona. And so big were the shoes of the little squat man, despite already having bagged numerous league titles, a Champions League and 2 Ballon d'Ors. It was honestly 2010-2011 where La Pulga truly broke out and began staking his own claim as an all-time great. This season, probably more consistently than maybe any other season in his entire career, the big game displays were on point. Be it destroying Atletico Madrid both home and away, hat-trick at home and a goal and an assist each away, destroying Real Madrid in 3 out of the mental 5 games he played against them that season, a false 9 playmaking masterclass at the home league game, a brilliant all-round display in the away league game, and one no doubt most if not all of you have seen, a sensational winner in the UCL semis. But he wasn't done there though. Nope. Because after handling multiple beatings to Ronnie's current home, his final target was the poor guy's previous home, as Messi and, to be fair, the entire Barca side that day ran rings around Manchester United at Wembley Stadium. Make room, fellas, for a new goal has climbed the mountain top. Number 4, Cristiano Ronaldo, 2016. We all love an underdog, don't we? But you see, because Ronaldo looks like this and does shit like this, it's just hard to see him as an underdog. Though in truth, if you're talking relatively and comparing him to others at his level, with Messi being the obvious example, he is the underdog in this. I mean, he quite clearly had less talent at birth, had much more obscure beginnings, and in turn a significantly harder route to the top. And while by now he's been battling this particular fall for close to 20 years now, in 2015-2016, it genuinely felt like he was battling everyone. Like seriously, it honestly felt like no matter what he did, this negativity was spewing out of all angles after almost every match. And it began f***ing right away! Because after he blanked in the first 2 games that season, the reports were that he couldn't do it under a cold and defensively astute coach like Benitez. So what did he do? Score 5 in the next game. As you do. So then the reports were he couldn't really do it when it really matters. He went on to break his own group stage Champions League record. So they then began saying all he does is score tap-ins now. He then replied by doing all this shit. So they then said he can't do it against the top 6. He goes and rips up Bilbao. So they then and by the way, I am not making any of this up. These men were relentless around this time. So yeah, they then went for his UCL away record. He responded by first throwing a bitch fit during a press conference, but then throwing Roma out of the Champions League the next day. So they then whined about how he hadn't done it against the top 4 teams. But you said top 6. Yeah, okay. And indeed, it was okay. Because he then responded by scoring the winner of the Clasico and a hat-trick in a UCL do-or-die tie, ultimately lifting the cup for a 3rd time. That'll show him Ron. Or not. Because then the focus shifted to the national team. Because following a slow start to the Euros and the Iceland game, completely ignoring the fact that he was recovering from an injury, they went at him again. His response: 3 goals, 3 assists, silver boot, Euro Cup, mic, fucking drop. Look, you can probably tell by the way I'm talking about it that on a personal level, this is probably my favourite individual season from a GOATed player. Though looking at it objectively, I have to say he does fall slightly below the top 3. Why? Well, along with the absolute madness of the top 3, fact is he wasn't able to perform in the 2 finals that year. And again, he was injured in both, not exactly his fault. But for someone who puts so much emphasis on the big games, I don't know if you could tell, I gotta keep my word, man. Either way though, what a journey that was. Man, I miss 2016. Number 3, Lionel Messi, 2012. What the fuck is he wearing? To each their own, I guess. The year the world was supposed to end. Though to be fair, with the way this motherfucker was banging them in, it looked like we were closer to an alien invasion. So if we go season by season, I think I'm right in saying that bar the first season at City, this was probably Pep's worst team. And while that actually says less about how bad this side was, they were still world class with pretty much the same 11. And more about just how lucky this man has been. Truth is though, up to that point probably more so than ever before, Messi had to step up and take responsibility. And brother, you can bet your bottom fucking euro, he did just that. Being a little more disciplined than the previous few years, consequently slightly trimming down his dribbling, while still being the best in the world at that, cause fucking obviously, while also focusing less on scoring the wonderful goals, and more on just being prolific / efficient. Result? The likes of which you've never seen before, because along with becoming Barcelona's all-time top scorer at just 24, Messi also totaled an earth-shattering 73 goals, 82 for club and country, 30 assists, 34 for club and country, in only a mere 60 games, 69 for club and country. So, while 08-09 was the perfect storm for Football Club Barcelona, 11-12 was the perfect storm for the individual that is Lionel Messi, i.e. one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, a world-class deliverer of the final ball, being allowed to solely focus on end product in a league that suit him to the ground, alongside individuals he's played together with since he was a kid, and under an all-time great manager who's known him since he was a kid. And for that, and for what he did, all categories, all criteria, all methods of judgment go out of the window. So yeah, lack of collective success and big game performances aside, well, I say lack of collective success, he still won the Copa del Rey. Yay, fantastic. But even if he hadn't, fact remains that this man, in the year 2012, was simply out of this world. And still, that was still not his peak. Cause that would be number 2, Lionel Messi, 2015. So following the departure of Pep and the return of his hamstring woes, the end of 2012 unfortunately saw the beginning of a year and a bit where Messi had a slight dip in form. And in case you were curious to know, this is what a slight dip in form looks for Messi. Stealing a living was that boy. And although even under Luis Enrique it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows at the start, with issues such as their new signing having to serve a 2-month ban following Bucktooth Billy's blatant and barefaced bite on the collarbone of the balding brute beast centre-back and Bonucci's best bud from the Blues backline on the biggest stage, and then the subsequent dilemma of trying to fit him in when he did get back by sticking him out wide so Messi can remain in the centre, boy did that f***ing suck. On top of the alleged reports of Messi wanting to leave, and just a whole bunch of other crap they had to clear out, the turning point that season took place in early January, where Barca fell to a 1-0 defeat away at Real Sociedad, with Messi and Neymar both being benched. Now this clearly made Luis Enrique realise that, no matter what the rumblings were behind the scenes, there aren't enough excuses on earth to try and justify having Messi, Suarez, Neymar, Iniesta and Busquets on the card and still losing to David fucking Moyes. So, post that game, whatever the that was happening behind the scenes was obviously soon fixed and gotten out of the way, by which point all bets were off, as MSN truly clicked for the first time the very next week against Atletico Madrid, with all three amigos getting on the scorecard. And as for Messi in particular, after having quite rightly been pushed back out like he had been in his early days, La Pulga showcased a more mature, intelligent and creative version of the right-sided forward he had been in years prior alongside Eto'o and Henry. And yes, 2011 was more explosive, 2012 more prolific, and 2019 more creative. But it was here where all three gelled together the best and benefited his team. And what we saw as fans was pure joy, but as opponents, I'd imagine pure trauma. Just ask James Milner, or Jerome Boateng, or whoever the fuck these nitties are. Wow. And by the way, here's a confession. I understand that the Ankara Messi quasi-Maradona goal was probably his best, but personally, there is no goal I've watched back more than this one. Like bro, just look at his f***ing starting position. Even finding a 6-yard pass from here would have been impressive. This Donny f***ing scored without even having to pass to anyone on the way. Cheat code, man. Absolute cheat code. And since this pure footballer thing has been going around for the last few months, if it means what I think it means, then 2015 Messi, in terms of being a pure footballer, is for me the greatest we've ever seen. But as far as the best overall, number 1, Cristiano Ronaldo 2014. So I've spoken about this before, and when I was writing the script from this video, I was actually thinking about the simplest way to sum up CR7 that season. And well, this is what I came up with. GOAT! And that is that. Agree or disagree? I'm joking. Obviously there's more. Where else are the shorts gonna come from? So if I was asked to pick one version of any attacker I've ever seen to win a game, given that I'm completely unaware of circumstances like quality of opposition, style of play of opposition, quality of my own team, style of play of my own teammates, I'd pick this version of Ronaldo, because not only did he have everything, but he showcased everything week to week, twice on most weeks. So with the arrival of Gareth Bale that summer, Mr. Ancelotti quickly realised that a 4-2-3-1 wasn't really on the cards anymore. So as a result, he switched Real Madrid to a more dominant and controlling 4-3-3, while keeping hold of the counter-attacking routes in the bigger games. So as far as CR7 went, this meant that he had to be more involved and take more players on than he did under Jose Mourinho. And this was key, because while his role in other Madrid teams like Mourinho's counter-attacking side or Zizou's 4-4-2 diamond limited his work on the ball, the role he was allocated to by Don Carlo in 13-14 allowed him to make use of a lot more tools in his arsenal, the likes of which he's always had. And make use, he damn sure did. Because in that season, no matter what the circumstances were regarding his teammates, opposition, the occasion, or even himself, there was nothing stopping him, as the BBC, along with the likes of Angel Di Maria, smashed through both cup competitions and went on a 32-game unbeaten run in the league, with Ronaldo tearing up defenses on his own when needed, coming clutch when needed, changing positions when needed, and being the main man when present. Though unfortunately, he couldn't be present every time cause, yup, this again. So, while this notably renowned but naturally needy, narcissistic and nerveless, numerous naps taking nutritional nutcase had nasty and niggling nuisance like nibbly knocks on his knee throughout that season, they became more serious around March-April time, and due to Real's slight dip in that period, this monster team missed out on the treble by mere fingertips. And during those couple of weeks, Ronnie's crazy campaign unsurprisingly did slow down a tad, with some fearing it may actually come to a premature end. But nope! Mate, when I said there was nothing stopping him that season, best f***ing believe I meant there was nothing stopping him that season. Cause guess what? Even after that injury, he still managed to score 2 goal of the season contenders in one game against Osasuna, arguably the goal of the season to save Real Madrid in the very last minute against Valencia, play a big part in the winning goal against European champions Bayern Munich in the Bernabeu, score 2 goals in the return leg demolition in the Allianz, dispatch a penalty he won himself, as well as get another assist in the Champions League final, and even during the World Cup, at which point he was practically playing on one leg, he pulled off the best cross of the tournament again in the dying minutes to keep his very average side in it for a little longer, and then ended the tournament by finding the back of the net one last time. It's weird, isn't it? Ronaldo's most successful period actually came when he was already past his peak. You know, Zizou, noodle hair, etc. And this is partly why people tend to remember the absolute brilliance of peak Messi with the 2 trebles, but more the latter-day goal-scoring version of CR7 with the 3-peat. Cause to them, subconsciously or otherwise, prolonged collective dominance leaves a stronger lasting memory. It is a team game after all, and while I myself do concede, as I have done on many occasions, that at the end of the day, sustained team success is what ultimately cuts it in this sport, never forget when CR7's peak actually was. It was here. It was 2013, 2014. The ultimate combination of footballing ability, or pure football, or however you want to call it, with athletic prowess, adaptability, mental strength, and combining it all on a consistent basis. Simply football's greatest. And that is that. Agree or disagree, beats indifference. Once again, don't forget to like, comment and share, and of course, subscribe. Till next time, you keep rolling.